My name is Woody Jones. I'm a member of the Austin Bar Association, and I am here to interview the esteemed Thomas Watkins, former president of the Austin Bar. The first question is, why did you become a lawyer?
I have no idea. It was decided in the seventh grade. All of my aunts and uncles, of which I had many, said I talked too much. All of my teachers said I talked too much in grade school, and they all said, you ought to be a lawyer. And that got ingrained in my mind. And so I think from the seventh grade on, I knew that's what I was going to do.
Tell me why you wanted to be president of the Austin Bar.
It was not near the organization then as it is now. And I thought we need to be more organized. We need to have a staff.
Did you have certain goals as you went in as president? And if so, did you accomplish them?
I had been president of the Austin Junior Bar Association prior to that, and we had continually, almost annually, won the national awards for the best projects. And the Travis County Bar wasn't doing that. And so I wanted, as a goal, to try to get the Travis County Bar more involved in projects like things at the schools and civics teaching and that kind of stuff. And we did that.
What are a couple of memorable events that occurred during your year as president?
Getting recognition from the American Bar Association for some in-class projects that we did at some of the high schools for students was a big accomplishment that we did that year.
What would you say that you enjoyed about being bar president?
My phone calls got returned better that year. In fact, I probably got more returns on phone calls that year than up until the time I became chairman of the Board of Disciplinary Appeals, in which then everybody returned my phone call.
Would you say the practice of law in Austin has changed since your year as president of the bar?
People work from home to practice law now rather than going into the office. And I come into my office before I retired, and, there's 20 offices on this side and 20 on the other side and more on the other floors. And I get angry when I come in because I look down the hall and there's 20 offices and maybe 3 lawyers in those 20 offices. And I almost scream at the top of my voice. If I'd wanted to work in this environment, I would have been a funeral director. And so that changed. The working from home concept was totally foreign back in the 70s. Courthouse has changed. Jury charges have gone to global, and then they go back to granular, and then they go back to global. The presence of women has been a lot different than it was when I was president of the bar. We now have all female district judges in Travis County. The number of women in the profession is a big change. The lawyers are more specialized, and the ones that are really specialized don't participate much in bar association activities. I think that the changes in our federal district judges has changed the practice in federal court. I believe appearing in Judge Sparks' court is different than what it used to be when it was Jack Roberts. Specialization is getting more and more intense. So I could get a client call up and ask me about something, and I realize I know nothing about that area. In fact, I did not even know we had that area. Practice of law is becoming more fragmented, more isolated into those particular areas and not as much as involved. When I was president of the bar, we had comp lawyers, we had insurance defense lawyers, we had plaintiffs lawyers, all kinds of transaction lawyers, but we didn't have the variety of practices that we've got now.
Mental health is an issue in the legal community. How did you protect your mental health while you were practicing law?
Simultaneously with being president of the Bar Association, I was also president of the National Mental Health Association in Washington at the same time. Therefore, on that board of directors of that organization, there were a number of psychologists and psychologists who were interested in keeping me healthy. And so I got free advice from a whole lot of real experts in the area. I think that part of staying healthy, mentally healthy, even though it pulls you in many different directions all at the same time, is a heavy activity in civic organizations of one kind or the other, so that you are doing something that is not totally law related. So that you have to be conversant with other people in the community. You have to learn some expertise about areas of things that don't relate to the law. And I think that is a break from what you have to do to earn your money, and that's good for keeping you with both feet on the ground. You figure out lawyers don't know everything about everything. Part of the problem with being a lawyer is that once you get the law degree and you hang it on the wall, you think you know everything about everything the first few years. And being involved in civic activities lets you know there are a lot of people who really know a lot of stuff about some really good things that you don't know about just because you're a lawyer.
Was there a particularly low moment that occurred during your legal career? And if so, how did you deal with it?
We tried a patent case over in Tyler and got kicked badly. It was a Swedish company we represented. One of the main engineers for the company confessed to me and their boss, who was here from Sweden, that he had in fact copied the code of the other side while he was drawing our code. And we knew we were going to have to put him on the stand the next day, and we told him to tell the truth. And of course, we just got clobbered for millions of dollars worth of damages. And I've kept trying to figure out what could I have done to prevent this from happening, and why didn't I figure out that my engineer was lying to me, and I just had all kinds of self-doubts.
Why should lawyers in the Austin area join the Austin Bar Association, in your opinion?
I think it's more important than it's ever been because of the work from home stuff. I think more lawyers ought to join the Bar Association so that they get to meet with a whole bunch of other lawyers that they no longer even meet in their own firms. I don't understand why the litigators don't go to the bar meetings when they know that the district judges are going to be at those bar meetings, and they need to show their face. They need to talk to them. They need to understand it. They need to learn how to listen when a judge asks questions.
Do you have any advice for young lawyers?
Up until I retired, I was a mentor to most of the young lawyers that wanted to be litigators, which there are fewer and fewer of them, by the way. And we can't get them any jury trials. The number of jury trials is going down. The cost. When I started out, they'd ask me what this jury trial going to cost, and I'd say between $30,000 and $60,000 to try a jury trial and handle the appeals. That figure now, if it's any kind of sizable piece of litigation, is $3 to $5 million. For the last 5 to 10 years, it's been almost impossible for me to get a first chair jury experience for a young lawyer without anybody else in the courtroom, so that they have to make the decision all by themselves. And I take the position that that's the only thing that teaches you how to try lawsuits, is to have to answer the question that just got asked you without any help from anybody else.
How can we change that so that young lawyers can get more litigation experience?
More and more mock trial practice for them with lawyers from other firms. I don't think it does much good to have internal, inside a firm, mock trial practices. And I don't know how we can get the firms to cooperate enough to hold mock trial practices for young lawyers. I had a young female lawyer who had the best set of skills I had seen in years and years and years. Well, we had a antique dealer here in town that we'd represented for years, and they had done fine, but then the daddy died, and now the son took it over, and they were going downhill. And they had sold a gun that allegedly belonged to Buffalo Bill. It didn't. And they got sued. And so they called us up and they said, we don't have any money. What do we do? And I said, I tell you what, if you let this young lady try your case, we'll do it for free. She went over, she tried that case, and she won. Those kind of opportunities are the only ones we get that we really can put young people on, because if you're going to spend $3 to $5 million on a trial, you don't want a 2-year, 3-year lawyer trying your case. See? So, I mean, the opportunities are not only because of the diminishing number of jury trials, but the increased cost of jury trials makes it tougher. I mean, Woody, when I started, I had a subrogation docket, I had a comp docket, and I had a collection docket, in which none of those clients cared how it came out. They just wanted it handled. And you could take a folder and go over and try it. Kathy, my paralegal, claims that I one time went over and tried the case with the wrong folder. Had nothing about the case. That was back in the days when I thought there was only one lower back x-ray, and every chiropractor in the state passed it around from jury trial to jury trial. I was fairly cynical even in those days. But we got a lot of trials in those days that are not there. Those cheap dockets don't exist anymore. Pro bono work, people say loan out the lawyers to the district attorneys and they'll try them. But think about that. Assistant district attorneys have a gazillion cases and only a few of them go to trial. And so they have to work themselves silly in order to get to the trials. And those are ones you can't try when they ought to be settled for the benefit of the criminal defendant. I don't think it's as successful as some of my old timer friends claim. to loan lawyers out to the district attorney's office, or to loan lawyers out to pro bono dockets, because you handle so many cases that shouldn't go to trial.
Do you have advice for young lawyers dealing with ethical issues?
I think every lawyer that starts out needs to get a phone number of somebody who knows their way around the DR, and not be hesitant to pick it up and call them.
Tell me about your law practice since you were president of the bar.
I've never done anything but litigation. I mean, that's all I ever wanted to do. That's what I knew I was going to do when I went to law school. My practice has changed from personal injury, contract disputes, it's employment disputes. Tried a bunch of wrongful termination, both as plaintiff and defendant. I have tried a whole bunch of non-disclosure agreements and non-competition agreements, in which employers have always tried to make them too broad and too long, and the Supreme Court has continued to try to change what a reasonable time and what a reasonable place is. You just have to read all the recent cases when one of those walks in the door, because it's different than it was the last time you tried one, because there have just been continuous changes in non-disclosure agreements and non-competition agreements.
What do you think about the new business courts that are going to handle those type of big old lawsuits between two big corporations? And then, of course, there's the 15th Court of Appeals that will hear the appeals from those cases. I'm curious what your thoughts about that are.
One of the things about the jury trials that people don't understand, every defendant in a lawsuit wants to have jurors who know about their industry, who know about what they do. And they think people who don't know about their stuff ought not to be on their jury. And it's exactly the opposite. All of us, lawyers, doctors, engineers, architects, live in a bubble in which they look at what each other does, and they model their conduct mostly based on what's accepted within their community. And that bubble, there's always members of that organization or that profession who are trying to push right to the edge of what is ethical or what is right. And that becomes the norm often, and people begin to believe that that's all right if they're inside the bubble. And so when the jury trial comes up, you put 12 people in the box who don't know anything about that, and they'll say, that stinks. That's why we need jury trials, and that's why they ought not to be people who know a whole lot about the industry that they're about to judge. And boy, the industry members, whatever that industry is, hate that with a passion. But it's why we have jury trials.
That's all I've got, and I really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us today.
Well, glad to do it.